Hello, everyone. Benjamin Lindsay here, managing editor at Backstage. It is 3 p.m. on a Friday, and that means we are lucky enough to sit with Harry Shum Jr. We'll be talking about his new film, All My Life, which hits theaters today and is available for video on demand on, just want to get it right, December 23rd. So later this month, just in time for Christmas. Based on the true story of a romance impacted by a terminal cancer diagnosis. It really is a weepy drama and provides material that we really haven't seen Harry tackle before as a performer. So I'm excited to speak with him about it. And it looks like he just requested to join, and we can get the show on the road. 1 second here. Hey there, Harry.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you doing? How are you doing? It's Ben Lindsay from Backstage. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you,
Thanks for
Ben.
joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, of course, of
Yeah, I'm
course.
excited to talk to you.
I know that you're kind of making the rounds talking about the new film. Congrats on it, by the way. The performance is really stellar, and we've actually had the chance to sit with Jessica in this same Instagram live setting. So it's nice to speak with both of you. But how about you tell me a little bit just how you first got involved and why you wanted to be a part of this process?
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking story. I mean, when the when about 5 years ago, when the story came out and video went viral, a lot of people were talking about it, and it wasn't until Todd Rosenberg adapted the script, and then that started floating around, and just how it was told felt very very fresh and new, but also it was an interesting perspective, especially within this genre. And I read the script, fell in love with it, pursued it in different ways, with
Mhm.
managers and agents and all that, and finally got to do a chemistry read with the utterly, like, just incredibly talented Jessica Roth. And that I will always remember that audition, just because it was just the moment where, and any actor would want to have those moments where you're like, you just connect with someone, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, let's keep doing this. Hopefully I get the part. And
Absolutely.
luckily we're here right now, and it's out and people get to see it. So I feel very grateful to be part of this project.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And obviously, I'm not too surprised to hear that there was some hoop jumping to get involved because it's a true story. They want to get it right. They want to do the story justice. Was it added pressure for you to be inhabiting this real person and telling his story?
Yeah, I mean, there's always pressure to just even do any film, right? But when you have the element that it's not a fictional character, it's someone who breathed and lived through this. It was important for us collectively, I think, to just support each other in the best way possible, and that's why I think having Mark Myers, our director, and Jessica Roth, we would every night go and sing, like, go come together and try and figure out ways to just make sure that we're doing the right thing,
Mm,
and we're not just going off of what the script is saying, but really finding those moments that you can't really write down, and you can't really sometimes even plan out. It's having those the intimate moments, but making sure that sometimes it is spontaneous in the
mhm.
way that it's being filmed. So, I mean, with that, that pressure is always there, but I think us having a little bit more of a freedom from Jen Carter, the real Jen Carter, allowed us to have that, and that was really really helpful in making that leap onto the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the blessing you're going for at the end of the day. Absolutely. I am curious though that I mentioned this is a weepy romantic drama.
Yeah.
It really allows material for both you and Jessica to mine emotional depths in a really heartbreaking way, crying on camera, really dealing with heavy issues. What is that like for you as a performer to tackle that material, and how do you kind of get in the right mindset to do that on the day?
Um, yeah, I mean, it varied throughout. I mean, there's a lot that happens in this movie. I mean, all the emotional journey, that the roller coaster that we have to tap into. Some of it, it's more internal. A lot of it was really internal. I mean, when you're talking about crying, it's what type of crying, why are you crying, and where. Sometimes, like, are you, for Saul was a little different. This character Saul was, it was holding it in as much as possible because he
Mm.
wanted to stay strong for the people around him.
Hmm.
And I think that is sometimes the hardest emotion, because you want to tap into it, but you have to hide it as much as possible. And especially at the wedding, it was more like a celebration. It wasn't, it didn't want to go down that path of woe is me, and being the victim, even though he was going through so much in the struggle that he was going through with trying to be strong for his future wife, and trying
Hmm.
to be strong for the friends around him. So for that was always a constant internal struggle as an actor, because you wanted to do a certain way, but knowing that at that moment it wasn't the right path to go. And that
Hmm.
was always hard to deal with.
There's always that negotiation for sure.
Yes.
Um, now, I am curious, just to backstage here, our audience is kind of the working actors and creators of the world. Just to rewind to your very early roots in the performing arts, I love hearing you speak about just your background. You're born to two Chinese parents in Costa Rica. You were raised there, moved to California. Do you feel like the experience, that lived experience of different cultures, different people, locations, and the empathy that provided ultimately leads to you kind of performing and inhabiting these different stories? How does that inform you as a storyteller at the end of the day?
Absolutely. I am very fortunate to be able to have crossed paths with so many different types of people. And sometimes you can't even, it would be the longest list ever, because it should be, of the people that may affected you for a year, or you've come in contact for like a year and then don't hear from them, or even those moments when you just make contact with a stranger that
Hmm.
really settles and changes maybe your perspective completely. And I think that's the most important part. I think as a performer, we always talk about being actors and learning technique, and which is just important. It's just as important, but I think more important is to connect with as many people as possible that differ from you, and not just have the same mindset or perspective that you do. And
Mm.
that has definitely informed me as a performer to look at material in different ways, and try and dismantle it so it becomes something that is very fresh and almost foreign to you, so you can start figuring out ways of how to play it, or how to at least set it up so it allows you to really live in the moment, but also as curiosity, that as a curious cat, I guess, right?
Hmm.
Going around it and trying to find all the different perspectives in it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm sure that it kind of flips a switch and allows you to just naturally look at things in a different way. I love hearing that you can kind of connect those dots. And in terms of your career as in the performing arts, you really started as a dancer. Was the goal always to make that transition to acting on camera the way that you do today, or what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, it's kind of like when you're a teenager and people used to ask you, what do you want to be
Hmm.
when you grow up, and it or even in when you're in 7 or 8, and it change it. For most people, it changes, and some people, they know what they want to do, and I think that's wonderful. But I think, for speaking to like performers out there that we're talking to right now, it's like sometimes something that was just happened by chance. And I love performing, but the idea of dance was scared me because I wasn't good at it.
Hmm.
But I just, something like pulled me. It was like this gravitational pull that says, like, you know give this a try even though you suck at it. Right? And that is always a scary thought, to fall into something. With, I think a lot of people do it, especially with whoever has like stage fright, or whatever the thing is to overcome that. And I was a shy kid growing up, and performing was the last thing on my mind, and my parents never really encouraged that.
Hmm.
Um, but as a dancer, I felt it really freed me and allowed me to express myself without words, which I was always afraid of, because moving into a different country, not knowing the language, not
Hmm.
knowing kind of cultural aspects that were very different from my household, and but dance, I think, really opened me up, and I think really informed me as an actor to be able to understand stillness, understand how to fight through certain emotions, and be comfortable with my body,
Hmm.
which I think is a big part that kind of doesn't really get talked about much, specifically with acting, because we're talking about dialogue, we're talking about emotions, and never really about just being comfortable with your body, which really reads on camera
Yeah.
if you are or not. So I am very thankful for the my dance career, and I continue to practice it in different ways, which I think has adapted in form.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. And I mean, you really couldn't ask for a better vehicle than something like Lee to connect those two worlds and to
Yeah.
make that transition to acting, from the dance. What did those early years look like for you, though? You mentioned that this was an arduous audition process just for All My Life. But early on, I'm sure that you had your share of rejection, your audition horror stories. How do you push through those hard times as a performer?
Yeah, it's I feel like I've grown to have selective memory, because
Fair enough.
I have this cabinet just full of these like sides that I would keep. I would keep all these sides from the audition, and
Hmm.
eventually I started to throw them away because you're just like the rejection. Like, I don't want to be reminded of it. But I recently looked at these auditions that I went to, and I would say, we always talk, a lot of performers or actors talk about, 90% of the things that you go out for, you never get. I would even say like 95%. And it's at that 5% that you do, that you maybe, you celebrate. But we forget to celebrate those moments when you just bombed at auditions, and
Hmm.
also to think like, I've been going at this for 15 years plus, and this doesn't happen overnight. And to know that those failures have allowed me to just get better, and to look at every single mistake as a motivation to better myself as not just a performer, but as a human being. Because I
Hmm.
think that is the heart of it all, right? We always talk about, like, how can I become a better actor? I was like, well, how can you be a better human? Because that alone will allow you to be a better actor, because the
Yeah.
empathy, sympathy, and to look at things where you can't necessarily uh, look at by just reading an acting book, or going to acting
Hmm.
class. To
Hmm.
me, it's really about therapy. And once you have that, and to know that there's empathy for even villainous characters, and to try and bring the humanity of whatever role you're playing, is, I think, the most important thing about, I think, performing or expressing yourself through these different characters.
Yeah.
But Glee definitely, opened a lot of doors. But before then, it was a lot of doors being shut in front of me,
Hmm.
and now, always looking back, you're like, well, I'm thankful for that, because I'm here right now. But
Sure.
during that time, it is the hardest thing to deal with. But the selective memory, I think, definitely has helped, because now looking back, I'm like, oh my god, I remember so many auditions where I would just be looking down on the page, and the camera would literally just see the top of my head. And you're like, I hope those videos never come out. But at the same
Right.
time, it's wonderful to know that you had to go down a certain path.
Right, right. No, it's part of life as an actor. But I love hearing this take on empathy and living a full life as an actor. That is one of the most important things, in addition to the training, in addition to the craft. That is wisdom that's also gained through a certain amount of trial and error over the years. As a final question for you, I'd love to hear the piece of advice that you would give your younger self. So something that you've learned along the way that you wish you knew back when you were getting your start.
Yeah, my dad used to always tell me this. He's a humble working class dude that he owns a hardware store now, but it's just a humble hardware store. He wasn't looking to build an empire of any sort, but he put food on our table, a roof over our heads with this job. And he would always express to me, it's like, take it easy, take it step by step, you know do work hard, do
Hmm.
better yourself. but these things take time. So if you do fall, you're only falling a few steps as opposed to on top of a building or whatever, and then it's a lot harder to recover. And I just never really understood that. As a kid, you're just like, oh, okay, Dad, no, I want it fast. I want it now. Like, I want
Sure.
instant
Yeah.
gratification. And I would tell my younger self, like, really listen, like, really listen to that advice, but also break it down. So it was something that I think as a teenager, I started to take that on and understand the wisdom behind taking things not slow and easy. I think that's very hard to kind of say because it's very broad. But I think in this, there's a necessary steps that it needs to take to get to a certain place.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
as much as you want to be superhuman and jump really high and get to that place really quickly, it's I think the journey is what's really fun. So my younger self, I would say the journey is going to be really fun and also very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But when you reach a certain height, it starts to, you look back and you would want to redo the steps again,
Yeah,
because you
exactly.
enjoy that whole process and that journey in the memory lane. And then you'll have more new heights to reach, but then you can actually take your time and not rush everything. So, I mean, that is a long advice for my younger self, but I would say that for young performers, it's
Mm-hmm.
like it takes time, take the necessary steps, enjoy it, and enjoy the mistakes, because I think those mistakes are going to be something that you cherish in the future when you look back.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I can't wait to see what you do next, Harry. It's been great to have your ear for a moment. Congratulations on the new film. All My Life is out in theaters today and video on demand December 23rd for everyone watching. And Harry, we'll see you next time. Thanks again.
Thanks, man. Thanks you.
All right, bye bye.
All right. Bye.